Hello, it's Dean Jackson. Welcome to not only just the More Cheese, Less Whiskers podcast, the Listing Agent Lifestyle podcast, and potentially the I Love Marketing podcast, a trimulcast right here from world headquarters in Winter Haven, Florida. And that means only one thing. It's a very special episode of our podcast today. And I've got a blast from the past, someone very special in our world here, Mr. Jesse Desjardins. Jesse.
How's it going?
Welcome. Now, just for longtime listeners, first-time callers, you may recognize Jesse's work as the man who created the original I Love Marketing logo. To much fanfare, it was very well received. Everything.
Do you know what else is pretty special, Dean? It's actually this year is 25 years we've been working together. We've known each other.
Is that right?
25 years.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
All right. Well, let's go there. Let's go back. Let's go to the Wayback Machine because Jesse's got quite a tale to tell. And so this is going to be a fun retrospective here. And so let's kind of tell the origin story of Jesse, and then we'll pick up the pieces from there.
Well, I like to consider myself to be a global implementer of the Dean Jackson methodology.
Okay, I like yes. Maybe the most notorious. Yes.
Yeah. So where do we start? I think about 16, I think I was, when I was first working with you.
That's amazing.
I think I dropped off my CV in your mailbox a bunch of times until you finally called me back.
I want to work.
I want to work. That's basically.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that when we started working together, there's always like this, you always meet people where you kind of realize there's something special kind of going on. And I forget. I might have even started doing photocopies, I think, for your folding things and doing mailers.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Even before the internet was the internet. You know? And I think that's where we started. Yeah.
That's really something. So this, as a notable thing, I've known your dad. We started out in real estate together in 1988. We were the two young guys in Georgetown. At the time, your dad's just a couple of years older than me, I think. But you guys had, moved over there. So I've basically known you your whole life since you're a young, budding television star. We can't let that
No, but
I wish we could find the clip. Is it on YouTube?
It's on YouTube, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. We may have to insert Jesse's McDonald's commercial as a young child star. I love it. And, you've always been very talented. And when you first showed up on the scene in our world, just recognizing you at that time really had like standout design skills. You could tell that you were going somewhere with that. They had a really great design sense and technical skill. I mean, the ability to do stuff.
I think like one of the things I learned at an early age with you is that based on what you know, it just kind of unlocks so many doors. Like I think like so many like these big lucky breaks that I've had in my career have been based on these insights that you've kind of discovered, and you discover this thing and it just unlocks this whole other world of possibility. And that's been what's amazing to look back at the past like 25 years is that you learn all these different things and it's just this whole new world opens up for you and this whole new experiences, this whole new things that you can do. So I attribute to like a lot of the big leaps that I've been able to make in my career through these like insights, and we can talk about these ideas that have like lasted the test of time. We live in this world now that is so technologically driven. Things move so quickly. But what are the ideas that have lasted for the past 25 years?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's the first of those? If you think like back to what was your first like insight into, what was the main things that I was doing back then? I mean, so Stop Your Divorce was just kind of in process. So money making website. The internet was just kind of coming on hot. Then we were right at the forefront of that with AdWords and pay-per-click search engines were there. No Facebook, no social media, no YouTube, none of that. So we were right at the beginning of the internet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like through like fundamentals though, and I think those fundamentals have lasted all through these technological shifts, which have been really interesting.
Yeah.
I think like one idea I learned early on from you was that this whole question, like, what would you do if you only got paid if you delivered the results? Like I've thought about that question so much the past 25 years, and I've been in situations where it's like, look, we're working way too hard for this. It's actually like, this is who we can serve. This is the results we can get. And this is, we can offer the thing, we can give them the result, a bit of the result for free up front. And it's just completely transformed like the way I think.
What's so funny is because I look back, you say everything builds on it. And that what would you do if you only got paid for the results is a big shift, but it also keeps you focused on identifying what is the result.
Yeah.
Right. And so I looked at it that I used to play this game where I would think, okay, if I was a wit and I could like command people to do something and they would just do it.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. So that's where all of these things, like if you look back at the body of work, the collection of things that I've kind of introduced to the field kind of thing, right, was the idea behind the squeeze page, what's called now the landing page, was that thinking about, it was my wizard thinking that was saying, what's the outcome that I want? Like just to recognize the results, right? So what, if I get people to the website, the first thing that I want them to do, if I could just have one thing, is for them to leave their name and their email address. And so I started experimenting with, at that point, people were putting join our newsletter or things up in the upper right-hand corner, but there was a lot of other things for people to click on. And I would measure the metric and see, well, if we get 100 visitors to come and we've got the little newsletter thing, maybe 5 people join the newsletter. But if we eliminate everything else and only put, the only option is to leave your name and your email, that we were able to get that up to 50% of the people coming to the site would leave their name and email. And I did that with the very first version of that I almost did it like the table of contents of Cosmo magazine, where the cover of Cosmo, where they've got all these compelling headlines.
Yeah.
And then instead of saying click here, I would say free inside, more inside, see inside. Yeah. And you'd see all these things that you want. Oh, I want. And then it would say get free instant access. Use your name and your email. And that would bump up because now there was no escape valve. There's nothing else for people to do. If your opt-in button or your opt-in form was one of 10 things people could do on the site, you just limited your chances to 1 in 10 that they're going to do it. But when you make it the focus, now they have to kind of question their sanity if they come to the page and leave. Why did I even come here if I don't want and now we've even simplified it to where if you look at like the 90minutebook.com or emailmastery.com, it's just a picture of the cover of the book. It's the leave your name and your email. And that's what you get. Still get the highest conversions on that.
And I think like it's been a privilege to kind of be in your orbit and to know that people who listen to your podcast have been around in your orbit for a long time. And I think one of the things I've appreciated the most is almost like your consistency of point of view over the years, right? Like you're one of these very deep thinkers who can explain things very simply. And that's something I've tried to adopt in my work also too, is that when you have an idea, when you see an insight, it's almost like you got a PR almost in a way to the people around you. So they see what you see and then they come along on this journey with. Yeah, and it's even great. It's again, going back to this, what would you do if you only got paid if you delivered the results? The great thing is once you have that point of view and you put that insight into the world and you start getting results back, it just solidifies that idea even more in your head because you see different implementations of it.
Now you see evidence of it, right?
Yeah.
Like that, I look at it that I saw early on that email was going to be the thing because you've got such a great intimate one-to-one communication with people. And you've seen it now. That was the beginning, email. And now we still have, email is still the primary thing that I'm most interested in because it's the way that you do it. It's a little hobby of mine to take screen caps of all of the ads that are shouting the death of email. Email's dead. And, texting is the thing. Yeah. Messenger bots are the thing. Yeah. AI is the thing. And I always, just for the fun of it, I take a screen cap and then I click on the ad. And the first thing they ask for is, what's your email address?
Yeah.
Without a hint of irony.
Yeah. That
email is dead. Here's how it is.
Yeah.
Go this. And any one of these social things that you want to join that they're proclaiming are, going to kill email.
Yeah.
The number one thing is give us your email so we can send you important information about your account, right?
Yeah.
And so there's still, it's the one that it's outlasted every of the other things, that have come to replace it. And it's so, I look back, like when I think about that, knowing that was the first thing was getting those emails, knowing building the email list was the big thing. And then from there, if I look at the 9-word email as a thing, I realize now the collection of simplifications that I've really made, right? Again, with the outcome that if I take that wizard thinking and apply it to emails, that the subject line, the only thing I want to say, if I could just command people, I'd say, open this email, and they would comply. And then when they're opened and they're in the email, you got to think about what are the things that you could possibly have as an outcome of this, right? That you either want somebody to click this link or reply to this email. Those are the two measurable results, right? And that's, so when you think about it, if I want to reply, that's where the 9-word email, if I said on the thing, hey, reply to this email as my wizard thing. So I started thinking, what would be the minimum amount? And it was a big, Jennifer Elmsley was the one I did the original first 9-word email with, right? Because she had all these people who were backed up on her website when her mom got cancer and she went through the hospice and stuff with her. And I just said, have you been in touch with any of the people? She'd already generated, 800 or 1,800, I forget what the exact number was of people, over the time. And then she shut it down for 8 months, hadn't communicated with anyone. And I just said, well, let's just send them an email. And so we just put Georgetown in the subject line. And then, hi, Jesse, you still looking for a house in Georgetown? And that was it. That
so
was
crazy
the
simple.
Of the 9-word email, right? And hundreds of people reply back.
Yeah.
And that's where I realize these things, sometimes the simplest thing is the way. So now I've got a collection of the squeeze page, the opt-in, single purpose opt-in page, the 9-word email is the simplest thing to get that response. And then if I really look at it, and I overlay now on what's the best way to get email addresses, nothing beats a book. It's been I've tested
over thousands of different iterations. Yeah, totally.
A book is the thing.
Yeah.
And what I've realized about a book is that the fact that you have a book is the most important thing. Then you have a title that as soon as they read it, the person you want to be in conversation with says, that's the book for me.
Yeah.
And you've got a way for them to get it. A squeeze page, a page that goes, here's a copy of the book, leave your name and email.
Yeah.
And so what they don't care about or know about is whether the book is 50 pages or 250 pages. And that's where we came up with the idea for the 90-minute book. It doesn't matter. A paperback book, a 50-page paperback book, perfect bound, is a real book. It looks and feels like a real thing. It's big enough to look like a real book, and it's small enough that you can read it in one sitting,
That's a huge difference in traditional advertising and marketing, because traditional advertising and marketing is all about the brand telling you look at us, look how good we are, look at all those features and benefits. And what you've been able to do over the past 25 years is flip that around and say, like, here's an offer, right? Here's something of value. Yeah. Give us your name and email and you'll get this book. It's about putting the user kind of first, right? That was a huge shift that happened for me, about 12 years ago, I think. Remember Nancy Duarte, my presentations that resonate, and a couple other books, Slidology. And I did one of our workshops, and she said to us, we were presenting, a lot of us were presenting as if we were the hero of the story. Look at us, look at my story, look at what I've done. Look at all my features and benefits. But it's not until you can kind of make the audience of the story the hero that they want to then pick up your story and run with it or do it. So that's what I really loved about the marketing, the different thinking you've put over the past couple of years. It's really about putting the user kind of first and looking at what their needs are and providing them value kind of first. And I think that's what's amazing about thinking now, say maybe compared to a couple 100 years ago. Imagine we would have had to do this. I know, like me, you kind of like to do your thinking alone and have a quiet time sitting, but that's probably all you had available a couple 100 years ago. You're in a cabin by yourself. Now we have the ability to actually test out our ideas in real time and get real feedback and look at over thousands of different touch points and sort of thing. So it's really great when you have that idea and you're able to implement it right away and then kind of see what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's why I think your ideas have tested the test of times, is because there's been hundreds and thousands of people who have implemented implemented them, and you have so many different thousands of touch points. So it's the truth. Yeah.
And that's the thing is I've really taken this scientific approach to things is because I don't care one way or the other. It's not going to hurt my feelings whether one thing works over another. I'm curious as to what is the best thing.
Yeah.
If a 250-page book worked better, then I'd be all for it. But the fact is, I have really leaned into the minimum effective dose.
Yeah.
As I find that's almost always the best solution.
Because you're actually doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's not the overly complicated dose where it has 10 different touch points and you don't know which one of them works.
And listen, by the way, the key word that people gloss over in that is not emphasis on the minimum, emphasis on effective is that it's the minimum dose that gets the outcome that I'm looking for. It still has to be effective.
Totally.
And so the thing was, if I found out that putting 51 pages in the book would be better at getting more email addresses. That's the outcome that I'm looking for this stage of the process.
Yeah.
Then I would be all for it. If it was 250 pages, then I'd say that's what we got to do. Yeah. But the fact is, 50 pages is plenty. The title and the cover and the fact that you got a book is the most important piece of this. And so having that gets you in the game because now you've gone from turning an invisible prospect into a visible prospect. And I think that the key distinction that I've made in there is that we're separating the compelling from the convincing, and that compelling is something that you meet somebody where they are and they're moving on their own power, seeking something out. Convincing in its, just in its nature, you're trying to move somebody into another thought. You're trying to get them to think a new thought from that. And often that's where people start in advertising. They're trying to, in the ads, they're trying to convince people. They're trying to introduce and convince them of a new thought to come on their side and take the action. But if you just move them from invisible to visible, now you can, through dialogue, convince them of everything, So
it's a greater story also too that's lasted thousands of years. It's a classic hero's journey when you think about it, right? You're creating this special world that you're trying to get people to come into, right? It's like people live in this ordinary world. They don't know about this new world sort of thing. And what you're presenting to them is like this call to adventure almost sort of thing, right? You as the mentor has to almost like guide that person through, and they're going to go through and they're going to conquer this new world and come back to the ordinary world having now mastered kind of two worlds. But I think where traditional marketing and advertising fails is that they're trying to be the hero of the story, right? And we've seen that shift happen the past couple of decades, especially with the rise of social media, where everyone now is in more control of their own story. This is not like you have to sit in front of the TV and have to watch a commercial. We've almost in a way like learned to like ignore those things. So it's even harder now, I find, to just bring someone into that world. But if you, again, going back to that question, what would you do if you only got paid if you delivered the results, is that predictably kind of what the different moves are, and you can confidently like tweak those little things, and you have new people coming into the system all the time. Very cool.
Talk about skipping them. Like, the DVRs are getting smarter now where you can't, on-demand stuff, you can't skip through.
You can, really.
Commercials on some of them. Juan and I were talking about Hulu. Hulu's probably the best, like, if you're going to buy, like, programmatic, like TV type of ads. Hulu is probably forced because you're not going to flip channels. And you can't skip through them. So you're forced to watch them, But anyway, that's a thing. I just look at it that the thing that you can do is move somebody one step of the way. You got to think like a chess master in that. And I know that you look at, I love these books. I don't know whether you've seen them. Read this if you want to take great photographs.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And the whole collection. Read this if you want to take great photographs of people. And so if you've got a course that teaches people how to take great photographs, it's such a great thing that if everybody on your list is someone who came in through the doorway of downloading a book by saying, I want to learn how to take great photographs of people. I mean, that's really you're stocking your pond, I call it, with all the right types of fish, the people who are interested in what you've got. And now it's just a matter of nurturing them.
You can't go wrong by thinking of marketing in terms of helping someone be a better version of themselves.
Yeah.
Like just like helping them, teaching them along the step to get them to where you are, right? It's not going to be like just this direct kind of transfer. And that's what I think I've appreciated of your work. It's done step by step and moving people along that path, which is it takes patience, but I think when you get it right, it works. Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about your journey here so it was 1999 or so, or 1998 or something when you first started?
I think so. Maybe somewhere around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when did you make the move to Australia? So let's kind of pick up there.
Maybe 2006, I think.
Is that long?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I started working for an internet cafe at the time, and we only had like 4 or 5 locations.
Yes.
And it was
Global Gossip.
Global Gossip, that's it. And our core business was actually at that point, the business model was shifting, but it was about getting hotels and airports and everywhere where travelers were at basically to do the internet for them, sell that as a service. And then I realized that, again, coming from the Dean Jackson School of Thought, that the way to get those big contracts was to actually educate people and to do presentations and to tell them where the internet was going, where the new consumer was going. So luckily I had this job where my boss would allow me to travel around the world and speak at conferences and speak to tourism events and just share everything we knew, all their insights, everything. It could be a complete open book. And every time I did that, there would be 2 or 3 new contracts that were signed in the audience. So this whole like marketing through education, that's kind of when I started really kind of understanding it. And then after that, I took a break from that. I went to go work at an ad agency in Paris. We were marketing Christina Aguilera's fragrance, and for a guy to be trying to get inside the head of a 16-year-old girl to sell perfume is really not a healthy place to be in. So that didn't last very long. And then I went back to Australia and I got a job at Tourism Australia to be the advocacy manager. And part of that was like this Facebook page that no one really kind of paid attention to.
Right.
And then when I got there, again, I think you kind of hear these insights and these stories, and some of the stuff you talk about is so simple sometimes that it takes a while for you to really kind of see how that can actually happen. And I remember at the time you were talking a lot about it being the mayor of something, right? Like, what would you do if you were the mayor of this? And I sat there looking at this Facebook page and I'm like, this is an amazing opportunity. Like, what if we were the mayor of Australia? Like, if anybody should be the mayor of Australia, it should be us. It should be Tourism Australia, right?
Yeah.
Because no one has claimed that position. You have all these other government departments who are kind of like jockeying for positions. But I mean, what if we just took a step back and say, hey, we're going to be the mayor of Australia?
Right.
And then so I remember I changed the name of the pages to Australia. It was Hipstagram and Instagram Hipstamatic and Instagram were the 2 platforms. And we didn't know which one was kind of really going to take off. Yeah. So I started an account on both of them. And it was interesting by positioning ourselves as the @Australia account. And again, I spent probably about 90% of my time educating the industry or stakeholders or public. And I remember internally, like, it was so difficult at the beginning because it was always like designed by committee, right? We couldn't actually agree on what the idea was. And it was like, okay, this is what our policy and this is what our social media strategy should be. And I remember I got so fed up with that and I stayed up all weekend. And I was like, okay, if we were the mayor of this, what would it look like? And I made this presentation and I called it the world's biggest social media team, right? And I was like, this was a whole like 10x thinking. I was like, if we're going to be the mayor, we're going to make this 10x. But the world's biggest social media team was essentially the 26 million people who lived in Australia, the 8 million people who visited every year, and the 300,000 people who worked in the tourism industry. I looked at my team of 2 people, and then I looked at this massive team. Yeah. And that's like, I would rather have that team. Right? Right. And then I remember I walked into the CMO's office and I put this deck on, I printed it, put it on his page and said, this is our social media strategy. It's called the world's social media team. And he looks at me and he's like, come on, you got 2 people in your team. You're not the world's biggest social media team. So, and I kind of walked in there. He goes, okay, hear me out, Nick. Hold my beer. And then he goes, I don't know. So I was like, I kind of put it online already and it already has like 30,000 views because it got featured on the front page of SlideShare. And then it kind of got this momentum. People picked it up and they started buying this story. And then it became this force that was like too big to contain anymore. And then it just aligned everything together. So I think when you have the right idea and the resources like start coming towards you. And again, this frustration of having meetings and trying to get alignment, it was too much of a small idea for anyone to be excited about. Now this 10x idea, now it became very clear what belonged and what didn't belong. How were we going to become the world's biggest social media team? I didn't have all the answers, but I am not smarter than the whole country together, right? But the whole country kind of coming together, at least these influencers and the early adopters. I mean, to make a long story short, we became like we kind of blew the results out of the water compared to any other national tourism board, but we would be getting 4,500 photos and videos sent to us every single day. So I think when you have a strategy, it's good.
So this is, I mean, as a sidebar on that, this was the most brilliant part of that what was the photo budget before you instituted this strategy?
That was a lot.
Yeah.
On the photos, I don't know. But any kind of traditional tourism board would spend quite a lot on creative work.
Hundreds of thousands.
Oh, millions. Would be
millions of dollars.
Millions on content,
photos and stuff to fuel the social media page.
Yeah.
And then you went from that.
Well, not just the social media page, but like traditional all of it. Yeah.
But you went from that to
getting
0 and 4,500 pictures a day coming in that are user generated content.
Yeah. So the way I think about that is like, okay, the strategy was the world's biggest social media sort of thing, but you can have strategy, but you also need story, right? And the story is how it's being implemented. So the story is those 4,500 photos that we got every single day. And yes, they're not all perfect sort of thing, but every day there was at least 12 that were the perfect implementation of the strategy, that you just had to look at those 12 and go, that's so much better than what we could have come up with. So our job was then to amplify those 12, right? To give it more power, to take our energy and our resources and to say, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. So you keep on like raising the bar, and that becomes like a superpower, right? There's nobody, it doesn't matter how smart you are in any ad agency or any brand, there's no way that you are smarter than the whole community. So I think your job is to have this vision and be so clear about your vision that you need to do nothing else but get out of the way. And I think that's what I've noticed also through the past 25 years of being able to implement this stuff, is that people don't put enough time on vision.
Well, and the other thing, not for nothing, you switching it from Tourism Australia or whatever the name of the account was to Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And switching the image
from the logo
to the kangaroo, that iconic picture of the kangaroo.
Correct.
Like it's his Facebook profile was just amazing, you know, and it brings it to life.
Yeah.
Now you got something with a face representing the thing. Yeah. And you wonder, you know, you look at it that this was the beginning of social media starting to really grow. So for all intents and purposes, this was really people's first real glimpse into what Australia was all about.
Of course, yeah.
You would only have access to whatever was put out in mainstream media you know, or your whole perception of, you know, was shifted.
But we weren't convincing anybody to come to Australia. That's
exactly
the thing. The big insight that we learned, and actually looking at our profiles, is that most people either lived in Australia or had already been to Australia. So that was a huge aha moment, because traditional advertising is all about telling people, come to Australia, we're amazing, all this kind of stuff. Where what we were doing is we were creating a story that was designed to make you look good. Right. Yeah. So it's for you to share, this is my backyard. This is what it looks like where I've been there. I've done that. Yeah. Thinking about the user first and what would make them look good.
Turn the whole country into advocates.
100%. Right. Yeah.
And so yada, yada, you become one of the 10 most powerful people in travel alongside the president of Delta Airlines and some big hotel chain. Like, I mean, all of a sudden, all eyes on Jesse. You really made a name for yourself internationally as a guy in travel, and that opened up a lot of doors for you. So that's just thinking, and you slid right over the SlideShare years that you became, if not one of the most downloaded SlideShare people.
I think next to President Obama's birth certificate, I think that was like my presentation is the most viewed that year. Yeah, but I think it goes back to kind of sharing your insights and sharing your formula.
Is SlideShare still a thing?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, man. But those decks that you did were like, there's a thing that if you had talk about, you know, your skill level is next level, prodigious level of slide deck preparation. It's so much so, you know, all the decks that you did on, you know, all the marketing decks that you did and the stuff on how to create great slide decks are just phenomenal, right? And totally knocked off. Let me even see if SlideShare is a thing.
Well, I think like you suck at PowerPoint was the biggest one. I still have
That's
people.
the one I was thinking about, right? You suck at PowerPoint.
Well, to me, like design is much more than just graphic design, right? It's just making things look pretty. It's actually thinking through what is the experience, what is the whole journey that I'm trying to create, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like you. I'm like I love learning and I love discovering new things and I love sharing everything that I know. And I find that if like that, you suck at PowerPoint deck might have taken me like maybe 300-400 hours over the years of kind of tweaking it. But seeing those, I think it has like 5 or 6 million downloads. It's been translated in a whole bunch of different languages.
See, look at, there's one of this guy's totally ripping off your caveman.
That's funny, yeah.
Right? Like that's, was it Jesse with one E on?
At Jesse Desjardins. Well, you just type in you suck at PowerPoint. I think you'll find it.
There we go. You suck at PowerPoint comes up 6.6 million views.
There you go, yeah.
And 61 slides. 100 beautiful slides from Canned Lion.
Yeah.
There's another one, 38,000.
Well, I think being able to tell a story.
Somebody else ripped it off, like directly ripped off your thing.
And that's funny.
In their account.
There was one presentation called Why I Sucked. I was like, oh, good, I have one of my presentations.
Your haters.
Yeah, my haters. That was quite good.
I think that's amazing. Though. Like we could do a whole episode just on your SlideShare knowledge of how to really communicate those visual stories. I mean,
but being able to design a presentation has actually been, I think, the skill throughout my whole career that has allowed me to it's unlocked so many doors because you have to be able to PR and explain what you do along the way. I think our paths have taken a little bit of a divergent path where I've worked primarily in kind of government and larger kind of brands, but I've using the skills that I've learned with you also too, it's a completely different mindset. These people don't think the same way, you know? So for us to be open as a brand and take user-generated content and make experiments, it's not something that most people want. So I've kind of had to protect that.
You're like a street ball player coming in to play in the NBA or, formalize the thing.
Yeah, but at the same
these moves they've never seen.
Yeah, but it has advantages, right? Like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I think when you can, again, that's why I think those ideas have tested the test of time. Yeah. In larger organizations or if you're a small business, it doesn't matter. It works because it's timeless.
So I love that. So the growth of the social media, the growth of Facebook and Insta at Australia, do they still, have they kept it up in your absence since you?
But it works quite well. Maybe 5 or 6 years. Yeah,
okay,
I was there for 7 years. Yeah, it's still a good strategy. It still works like 12 years after.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things that you did in Australia was the Giga selfie.
Right.
As that now did you win a Cannes Lion?
Yeah. So with our agency, TBWA.
Many of our agency people know it. You got a real live Cannes Lion winner right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the whole idea is, can you take a selfie? And that's the thing is it was a really great question. Can you take a selfie from a kilometer away to really show the grandeur and the scale of Australia? So with our agency partner, TBWA, we figured out how to basically, you can trigger a camera with your phone from a kilometer away and it would create this little video that it would send to you. And it's interesting.
Imagine this was the big, I'll set the stage on it. So you get these iconic things about Australia that you can't take in just a small frame. Like if you're at the base of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, that was one, for instance, with the Opera House and the stuff all in the frame there. There's no possible way you could, while you're on the beach there, take that picture and get the grandeur of everything. But across the bay, a kilometer away, looking down, you can get you and all of the things. So the picture starts out huge, and then you could zoom in and get right to just you on the thing.
I would say the first time we did it and what we ended up winning those awards for, the case study was brilliant. But and actually, when you kind of dive a bit deeper in it, it wasn't a huge success because we only got like 6 or 7 photos done that day. But it's when we took it to the next step. Like I was living in Kirribilli, which is like the suburb across from the harbour. You can see the Opera House and the bridge. And I remember I went to Canon and I said, look, we had this idea. We tested it. It doesn't work 100%, but you guys could figure out how to do this, right? And I remember their engineers came over to my house one afternoon and they sat down and they looked around and go, we have it. We know what to do. So they came back 2 weeks later and the idea ended up being so brilliantly simple. They literally put 3 cameras together with like different zooms, and it would just take 3 pictures at the same time, and just the software would just create this sort of thing. So it was so beautifully simple because the last time we did it was like overly complicated and just required too many resources. But what the new solution that Canon came up with meant that we were able to take like 6,000 pictures in one day. It was like this 1,000% jump by just having the right who's to kind of come in and kind of help us fix it. So I think that's been the whole thing through like the past of my career is like have this vision like that's so clear that the right who's it becomes. But I think the challenge is like sometimes people outsource their vision too much. And I've noticed this in governments and brands also too. And it's even worse when you have bigger budgets because it's just very easy to say, oh, we'll just like shop the idea.
Throw the money hose.
Throw the money. Yeah, exactly. And just see kind of what sticks. But it's having that clear vision, I think, is the most important thing you can have now because there is unlimited capacity in the marketplace.
Yes.
And that there's the right person who knows exactly how to execute that vision more brilliantly than you will ever will. Yeah.
I love that.
That's what's exciting about it, I think, where we are now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that sounds a lot like the VCR formula. We'll talk about that too. But let's kind of fill in some of the lessons from the years after Australia. You moved to Bangkok.
I moved to Bangkok, yeah.
And you got you have an MBA now in...
I do, yeah. I did everything that's opposite.
No business MBA. Yeah, you doubled down on the thing.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, right.
But I think it's like being able to figure something out. I always think of it as like a bit of a slot machine. I know you talk about this where it's like, I want to be able to test out what are the components we need to make into this until it becomes a slot machine. It becomes like this thing that's very predictable. And then you go out and figure out kind of the next thing. Figure out one problem after the next problem and you have a model or formula that works.
So what were your big experiments and breakthroughs from the Bangkok years?
I think I worked a lot with a museum, like the Museum of Contemporary Art. And at the time, it was about thinking, like, this is during COVID. I think we were getting like just over 100 people a day coming through the door and about 80% of them being international. And when we had to shut down during COVID, it's kind of we had to reshift our whole strategy. But it was about rethinking about what does the local experience look like, and very basic things like putting the pictures lower, so that people can take photos in front of them, or allowing people to come in with different outfits, sometimes suitcases of outfits sort of thing. And that was very like non-traditional. It's very much about the artwork being the hero, about putting the user, the visitor, and that completely transformed everything. I think when we opened up, we were getting over 1,000 people a weekend coming through, and this huge kind of leap. And then did a lot of work in terms of experience design.
Because the main thing, when you think about that, you were allowing people to spread the word through their own thing, because they're coming and they're taking pictures, but the artwork is the star. Yeah. And then this is where that artwork is. I'm here. Yeah. I
very much think about it. And going back to this Nancy Duarte example, she has this great picture in the book Resonate where it's like Luke Skywalker and he's got Yoda and on this holding on to this bat. And throughout my career, I've always had this picture printed on my desk because it reminds me of this analogy that in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker is the hero. The story is all about him. It's all about his journey that he must go on. And most people, when they create a story, when they create an offer, they very much make themselves the Luke Skywalker of the story. But in Star Wars, Yoda is the wise one. He's the mentor, right? He kind of whispers the path in Yoda's, in Luke Skywalker's ear. And when you can make yourself the Yoda, and when you can make your audience or the user the hero, you can make them Luke Skywalker, they will pick you up and they'll take you places much further than you can on your own. So I think what I've always tried to figure out is how do I create this experience where people pick up this thing that we're doing and take it much further than we can. There's no way that I can fly around the country and take 4,500 photos every single day. There's no way that I'm smarter than the whole community. And I think that's whenever I kind of design a presentation now, whenever I'm speaking to people, it's always like, I always come in thinking everyone else, this whole group of people together collectively, they are smarter than me. It's my job to unlock it.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. After Tourism Australia, I was hired to do the speaking gig in Toronto. And it was like a 3-hour workshop for all the tourism boards in the US and Canada. I was like, okay, I haven't been in this job for 2 years, but they're asking me to speak about my experience with it. And yes, I can kind of waffle on for 3 years, but it's like, I bet you there's some insights that are much better in the room. So what I did is there's maybe like 200 people. And I started off by saying, okay, here's the problem. We're all being asked to do 100 times more than what we're being asked to do. We have to do more content, it's getting more complicated. And everyone's like agreeing, yes, okay, cool. This is the problem, right? I want you to take out a piece of paper and with your seat neighbor, I want you to write down 20 questions, right? That would help you reframe this, like what resources we can get or how can we tap into the whole country or all those different things. And I gave them 5 minutes to do so. And in 5 minutes, they had to come up with 20. So, okay, great. Put a timer on. Everyone's like, shh. And then okay, it took another 5 minutes. I want you with your seat neighbor to circle the top 3 questions that you think are most brilliant, that are worth exploring. So another 5 minutes, top 3 questions. And the whole 3 hours was us just exploring these 3 questions. And that presentation, everyone walked away going, this is one of the best presentations I've ever seen in my life. And I had to do like zero preparation for it. But all the ideas were there.
That's the Dan Sullivan formula. I mean, thinking about your thinking, really helping.
Thinking about your thinking. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, that's his whole thing, right? Is that you're letting, that's how he runs workshops. It's always more fascinating to ask questions that they can then come. So they're creating the content, you know?
I think it's like Richard Friedman also to your 12 favorite problems. He always says that you have to have 12 favorite problems in the back of your head because you'll go through life seeing solutions to those problems.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, that's good.
That's what's amazing, I think, when you have this kind of...
That's funny that you say that. Like, I look at that. I'm walking around with 8 profit activators in my mind at all times, looking for how they apply, how they apply to that. So I think that's pretty cool. I mean, this all this platform that you were able to launch from. Yeah. And then, so next stop was
Qatar. So World Cup in preparation for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was about, again, kind of figuring out those big kind of innovation kind of pieces, like in terms of content. And then after Qatar, which is where I'm at right now, working on the NEOM project.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Tell me about NEOM.
Yeah.
I want to hear the whole, so 2 things I want to do, because I know there's some stuff that you've done that today we can't really talk about it, but in a very short period of time we can.
Yeah.
So I think I've found a workaround for us. What I'd love to do is we could talk about the big picture of NEOM, about what's going on and what you've learned there. We can talk about the VCR formula, talk about all of that, and then that we can do that also. We can release this right away so that everybody can talk about that.
Yeah.
But then we'll do a sidebar to talk about a VCR field report that we can supplement to send after, once we're allowed to talk about it.
Got it. Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So if you could talk around.
I can talk around. I'm not supposed to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So NEOM is probably one of the most exciting projects in the world at the moment. It is a real moonshot. It's a region in the northwest Saudi Arabia. It comprises of a bunch of different projects. The project that people mostly know about is the Line, that kind of very futuristic city that's 175 kilometers long. 5% of it will be developed and 95% of it will remain a nature reserve. I've been fortunate to work in some of the most amazing places like Australia and across Asia and the Middle East, but this has to be the place that's completely blown my mind. Very few people...
Just from a standpoint of visual.
It's crazy. Yeah. If you've seen the movie The Martian, that was filmed in Wadi Rum. That's about 20% of the whole Wadi, which is actually about 80% in our across the border. It is truly this different world. And I think that's what I love most about, it's like, as a marketer and experience designer, you have access to this world and you're trying to bring people into this, right? And that's what I'm...
Even just the things that I've been seeing on your Instagram, your personal journeys into the wilderness there are like nothing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It really is like going to Mars.
It is.
I mean, that ancient level stuff, like whole otherworldly things.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's like it's a lot of technology is being developed there. It's very futuristic, but it's also built on one of the most kind of historic lands.
I've been describing this like whole project as like Cirque du Soleil at a national level. Like what's possible with a positive attitude and an unlimited budget and one person making all the decisions. It's like,
well, it is part of the 2030. Yeah,
like here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. It's incredibly exciting. I mean, the whole country is going through this massive transformation. It's all part of the 2030 vision. There are multiple giga projects going across the country. But working at NEOM itself is really fascinating because it is the perfect environment to be able to implement your VCR kind of formula. And again, it's kind of like going back to having this really solid vision. And then who are the people who have the capacity to help execute on this vision? So like Australia, the job that I have to do is completely impossible for one person, right? I work in marketing for the tourism. So we're technically not open to the public yet, but we will be in the beginning of next year. But it's around telling the story of this place that people have never heard about, but that people might have perceptions, which is very difficult to kind of to get over. And so it's kind of like thinking through that whole system for how we're going to tell that story. And it's very easy, I think, to come into an environment like that with your own expertise, going, I've done this before in Australia, I know exactly what to do, but I got to go back to kind of my foundation kind of thinking and being like, okay, it's a different vision here than it was maybe 15 years ago when kind of social was starting to come out. So part of a lot of what we're doing is we're inviting people and then who have the capacity to execute to tell that story. So part of the 3 challenges that I'm dealing with at the moment is to make it real. Like a lot of people doubt this vision because they've only seen renders and they don't look real. They look too futuristic. The other one is to turn skepticism into curiosity. It's like, oh, maybe this thing actually is happening in like these construction photos. And the third is to actually show what we'd look to explore this play.
I love that. So this whole, and so the VCR formula that I was sharing with you that you've really taken to, which I love, is I started recognizing it when, as how Kylie Jenner became a billionaire and Mr. Beast. And you're seeing it played out now that there's 3 components to this. And I look at it as vision plus capability multiplied by reach. And so the capability is the ability to do something, and capacity is the room to, most people.
I've been saying capacity. What's the difference between capability and capacity?
I'm going to share with you. So the capability is the ability to do it.
Yeah.
But the capacity is having the room to do it. So if most businesses work at, so you look at the studio here, for instance, and Juan and I've had these conversations that you look at this studio has the capability to record and do podcasts like this. So anybody could literally, you saw it, I walk in here, we sit down, everything's already set up. We do the thing and then I leave and it'll automatically happen and show up on the internet somehow through my team of things making it happen. So this is a capability to do this. They've got all the equipment, they've got the room, they've got the stuff, but they have excess capacity, meaning that this room, this studio is available. It's not booked 100%. So when you look at, for anybody, having a personal awareness of your VCR asset. So vision is the ideas, the know-how, the experience, this is what I think we should do kind of thing, a plan. That's a vision. The capability is the ability to actually produce something, do the results. So in order to do a podcast, you need to, if I were to do the video things, I would have to have the capability, which means I need the lights and the cameras and the microphones and the soundproof studio and someone to run all the equipment. That's all the capability required to do it. So there's a lot more people who have a vision that they'd love to do a podcast, but they don't have the capability for it, right?
Or they might start building this thing and lose track of their vision.
Yes,
this takes time and effort. Yeah, totally.
And then the output of this multiplied by reach, meaning the ability to get it out to people, right? So let's take Kylie Jenner as the example. Kylie had this vision that she wanted to do a lip kit. She wanted to have her own version of a lip kit. She didn't have the capability. So she partnered with Seed Beauty Labs, who was at the time, this is before they even had their own factory. The brother and sister are the millennial children of the guy who owns Spatz Labs, which is one of the, all the makeup in the world, all the cosmetics in the world are made by about 5 or 6 different manufacturers. Then they're all labeled by whatever brand is doing it, right? Just like all the shampoos, same thing. So they started out using excess capacity in their father's factory to create Kylie's lip kits. So they've got the vision. Now they got the capability. Here's the lip kits. And now to multiply it, all Kylie has to do is say, hey, my new lip kits are ready. Yeah. And she broke the internet.
Yeah.
And so all 150 million of her people, she's instantly got that out there.
Yeah.
So that is how rapidly you can, in this new world, go from vision to billionaire. Wrapped through the capability of someone else. So, Mr. Beast is the other perfect example, right? That he had the vision of, I want to create a hamburger restaurant. And it wasn't necessarily his vision for this, but the guy who created virtual dining concepts, Robert Earl, the guy who started Planet Hollywood back in the day, he owns hundreds of restaurants or thousands of restaurants now. He recognized that all of our restaurants we're only running at about 50% capacity because it's time, right? So he knew that they've got all the equipment. And this was a real breakdown. If you go to the Virtual Dining Concepts website, you'll see where it says start here, and it shows, and it says, which equipment do you have? And there's only 8 things. Like if you think about every kitchen, every commercial kitchen in the country, they've got some combination of refrigerator, freezer, fryer, deep fryer, oven, pizza oven, those are the basic things.
Yep.
And if you've got that equipment and the SKUs, the recipe, recipes are vision. That's the ideas. So to be a Mr. Beast menu preparer, you need this equipment, and which every kitchen in the country basically has.
Yeah.
And these 23 SKUs that are all available through the same, there's only 2 or 3 suppliers to commercial kitchens, to food. So, and then they send you the branded packaging.
Yeah.
So now you've got your everyday kitchen that's preparing your own things at 50% capacity. They put a tablet in your kitchen. They drive sales off online. They alert you in the kitchen that we got an order in your area for the Mr. Beast, the burger. You take it off, make it up, package it in the Mr. Beast packaging, set it by the back door, and someone comes and picks it up and delivers it. And that's all you have to do, right? Is you're just tapping into excess capacity without ever having to open a restaurant of your own. And so he was able to open 342 restaurants on one day, all simultaneously.
And didn't it take McDonald's like how many years to do that?
Yeah, you look at that. It was many years.
Yeah.
And now he's over 1,600 restaurants. And then he did the same thing with Feastables.
Yeah.
So now he wanted to make chocolate bars, healthier chocolate bars. So they partnered with someone who makes all the chocolates. And then he just tells people, now they've got chocolates and cookies, and he's distributed in every Walmart in the country. And it's, going crazy. You see it now. All these liquor brands that everybody, Ryan Reynolds, Casamigos, all the things, fragrances, all the things that people have a vision to attach to someone with reach are crazy,
Dean, I can confirm it works on every single level.
Yes.
Like it works even like at a government level. I think like my job is to essentially create memes, to create these strategic memes, these ideas, and then people implement. Because it's as much political as it is kind of creative. There's nothing more complex than a country brand when you think about it. We're not just selling shampoo, we're selling a whole country. It has different regions, different experiences, different products, different hotels. It's quite complex to get everyone kind of working in the same direction. But I always think about that too. Who has the capacity and who has the capabilities to then implement that idea? And when you actually stop and think about it, if there's actually someone who has an asset wants to make sure that asset is used 100%, right? So your job is to unlock that. So, and I think you do that through telling a really great vision, through a really great story, then people want to adopt it and kind of take it their own run with. And that is something I think when you figure out how to do that, I think a lot of people don't spend the time to figure out how to do that. They almost like just go right to spending the money. Oh, we have this ad, we're going to push it out. Not actually kind of thinking about, okay, how are we going to unlock all this capacity and capabilities, which is really exciting.
So part of the thing for everybody has some form of vision, capability, and reach.
Yeah.
And what I've been trying to kind of help people do is inventory their VCR assets.
Yeah.
And you start to think with making a column, page, vision. What do I know?
Yeah.
What do I know how to do? What have I figured out? What are the lessons that I've learned? What are the recipes I've created? The algorithms?
What are the insights that I know? Yeah.
Insights.
The experiments that I've done.
The experiments that I know the answer to. What is the insight? The things that I know how to do.
Yeah.
Or even the things that I want to be able to do. The vision that I can see an opportunity in, right? Yeah. That you make those and you've got that as your vision assets.
Yeah. For me, it's also like what stories we're trying to tell.
Yeah.
The vision. Like what is a story that is actually quite complex to tell, but I know that that's the story I need to tell, but then it goes into like the C sort of thing. Who has now the capability and capacity?
So the capability then is what capabilities would you need? Like the difference between Kylie Jenner and any other person that you see on Shark Tank or in any situation, many people would go through the idea of, I want to start a cosmetics line. Yeah. And then their first step is they're going to go to Google. How do I make what's recipes for this? Then they got it. Then they're going to Alibaba trying to get like little, packaging and all the ingredients, and they're getting it all shipped, and they're setting up a lab in their kitchen and baking it all up and extruding it, putting it in the things and recruiting their whole family, kids to fill the bottles and then try and get it out with, social media ads, and the orders start trickling in and they're trying to fulfill the orders themselves.
As opposed to going to the person who has this figured out for the past 20 years, who's done all the mistakes. You can just bypass all of it.
It's who, not how.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing is most people go down to the how path. How do I make these and how do I sell it?
Yeah.
Is let's just focus on who.
Yeah.
Who's got these capabilities, right? The reason that we're here right now is I was sitting in the cafe. I was thinking, I want to start doing video podcasts.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's so much more opportunity with the video stuff because then you still get the audio podcast, but you also get video that you can put up long form, and you can also chop it up, right? So many things. So I started thinking, and I caught myself going down. I was going to convert one of the rooms in my office into a studio.
Yeah.
And I was going through the things. Okay, so I'm going to need lighting. I'm going to need cameras, and what cameras should I get? And I started asking all these questions that I don't know the answer to. And immediately I thought about this studio. And because I looked at this building when it was for sale pre-COVID there, I had thought about coming into this studio, but then Juan and his partners bought the building, and I knew that they had done the renovation and they had this podcast room. And I thought, I wonder if we could just go do it there. And so literally I said to Stuart, let's go see Juan. Let's go over to Dolphin Image and see if we can do the thing. So he said, yeah, that's what we do. You can rent this room and we'll do the whole thing. And I said, can we start tomorrow? Yeah. And we did. And so literally just bypassed all of that, stuff. And by the way, each one of these cameras are like $4,000 or $5,000, and the lighting and these mics are probably $1,000 each or more, and the software and all the stuff. How much time it would have taken just to get set up and prepared to do it. So before I even had, let's say it would have taken 60 days to get everything all set up and get ready to do the first one. Yeah. I already had, our first 10 podcasts done.
But I think most people get
for
crippled.
less money than it would have cost to build by one of the cameras.
Totally. And I think most people get crippled by this complexity, right? They have this great idea, this great vision, and they try to implement it themselves. And the complexity is just, they get crippled by it. There's no way that they know how to do it. Or either they do, they will end up making compromises. And their vision gets compromised. But there's never been a better time to execute on your vision if you.
So capability, knowing if you just focus on the vision, get crystal clear on what your vision is, testing your vision.
That is hard. It's not easy.
I know.
It's really hard. Yeah.
Having that, architecting your vision, then recognizing what are the capabilities that you need and seeking those out. And then when you come to them, you come to a place that's got capabilities. Yeah. This is, maybe you're a person, and every business, every entrepreneur has these to some degree. You've got vision, you've got capabilities, and you've got reach. But maybe you're stronger on one than the other, right? And you start to think maybe you're capability rich, that you've got factories and equipment and staff and all of these things, but you're running at less than full capacity. That if you had more business, you could have that whole thing, right? So you start thinking about a capital allocator with your assets, which is now you've got your excess capacity is one of the greatest assets that any business has. You have access to your capabilities at cost.
Especially if you can scale it also too, because you have a system that you've perfected that now, even if you added 50% more staff or 50% more resources, it's predictable. You know exactly. Someone doesn't need to take the risk of doing that.
Yeah. So you look at that capacity as the thing that if, either you're a capability rich company and you've got capacity to do something, and your incremental cost of doing that is a fraction of what the retail value of what you're doing is. And then the multiplier is reach, that you've got access to an audience of people who want this, who will capitalize on this, right? So Mr. Beast has the equivalent of a Super Bowl commercial every time he puts out a video.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's got that reach, right? And Kylie, same thing, 150 million things. So you start to think to yourself, you look at below the surface, you look at Aksher from Night Media, who's the guy who runs all the business side of Mr. Beast. And you look at Robert Earl, who masterminded the whole virtual dining concepts idea. And you look at, there's an opportunity to be a visionary in these, right? Like to see where the pieces fit together. And just architect these situations for it.
100%.
That you can put those things together. And by the way, reach can also be bought. You can also, if you have money, you've got the capacity to have reach that way, right? Because if you've got an algorithm that works, you've got a vision, you've got the capability to put it together, and the marketing equation works, that you can get it in front of people at a profitable level. Now it's just money that can multiply that reach.
We were looking on TikTok last night, right, too, and all these brands who are doing these like UGC kind of sort of thing. Imagine if you're a brand that has a direct to print, like you're making hats or like t-shirts, that kind of stuff. You can essentially hire 15 creators to make a commercial for you, right? They have the capacity, the capabilities to tell that story. And then through reach, you do paid ads, and all of a sudden you have 10 different iterations of a creative. And with maybe probably even less than $100 each ad, you can test out which one works and allocate your resource towards the one that kind of produces the most amount of money, as opposed to just doing one version. Which is hugely exciting.
I was sharing with you this. I'm super excited because I have a new client who does just that.
It's so cool.
Imprint maker. There's lots of, they do direct to garment printing, and we've been having this VCR conversation. So
I always find
that out.
So I've worked a lot in kind of tourism, marketing, and experience design. And one thing that I've noticed is that we often talk about the ultimate luxury is to create this transformation. When someone is a little transformed, they change sort of thing. But it's kind of like hard to actually put into practice. But I've noticed that when you actually create a transformation in people, they will describe it better than you can. That story that is produced, I have to like look at it and go, wow, that's a really great story. That's like that it right there is a perfect implementation of our strategy. So it's like, how do I allocate more resources to producing even more of that? And it keeps on, your understanding of it keeps on getting better. So I think even if you're a small business, you're a donut shop sort of thing, you make these incredible donuts, you see them being shared on Instagram and on TikTok, you look at that and go, okay, how do I get more of that? How do I get more people? And then it might only be maybe a small kind of first iteration of it, but then you can point to someone else, or you can see something that's happening across the country and you can find that person who can implement that kind of story, make it even better.
I think that VCR thinking of those things, let's say you're a young donut creating company, Krispy Kreme, and somebody has the vision of, well, how can we sell more donuts? Well, what if we got fundraising groups involved in kids where they could go out and sell donuts and raise money for their band or for their football team or whatever. And then you've got this army of unpaid salespeople that are out. You've aligned your capability with their cause, and they're out now. And every time they sell donuts, it raises your thing. And people love the donuts because they're like crack. And that builds your donut brand. You look at, when you look back historically now at all these things, you look at Vistaprint. You heard of Vistaprint?
Yeah, of course.
So, they don't have any of they started out, they were doing gang runs on other people's printing presses, right?
Interesting.
But they had a arrangement with Microsoft when Publisher came out, that they had their information inserted in every box of Microsoft Publisher. So people are now getting the ability to make their brochures and flyers and postcards and business cards and all these things. And now inserted right in it is Vistaprint, the way that you can get these printed for less money online. And it built the whole company. You're riding the reach of these things. So you start to visualize and you say, okay, what's my vision? What capability do I need to make that happen? And then what reach vehicle can we attach this to?
Yep.
You know, so whether it's somebody who's already got all of your customers, you know, it's kind of a crazy thing. And it can be local. Like you think about, I was just talking I do a lot of work with the Mosquito Authority, the mosquito treatment company. And one of the things we were talking about, like reach wise, is partnering. Who else is in the backyard, right? Like who else is
already in the door?
Yeah. Who's already. Yeah. So I thought about, you know, for them partnering with a barbecue company. That, remember, imagine a local barbecue place that's selling barbecues. Because where are you most likely to get bit by mosquitoes? While you're flipping the burgers, you're getting bit by a mosquito. Imagine if you could allow the barbecue place to sell, every barbecue they sell comes with no mosquito guarantee.
Yeah.
That it's the world's only mosquito-free barbecue. That it comes with a certificate for a free barbecue, a free mosquito treatment.
Why not? If you're the barbecue distributor, why would you say no to that? It's a value add for their customers.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And it's taking your capability and capacity. So the Mosquito Authority has the capability to rid your backyard of mosquitoes. Yeah. They've got the capacity to do it, and they get it at cost. Their cost to give you the experience of a free mosquito treatment is a fraction of what the retail value of it is month after month for the whole season. So to give you the experience one time for a fraction of the thing distributed through the reach of the barbecue company. Imagine what if every swimming pool came with a mosquito-free guarantee. Yeah. Every patio furniture set came with a mosquito-free guarantee. That you're thinking about all these things that people are doing that are going to encourage them to spend more time in their backyard. Yeah. You're getting them at the source, right? So those are things that are just vision. Yeah. Exposing yourself, thinking about practicing this ability to be a VCR, practitioner. Yeah. A VCR practitioner. I think it's like that's probably one of the most important skills you can have even as a marketer today, because all the channels that are very traditional don't perform the same way that they did. It's much more fragmented. The people have come to learn to ignore advertising sort of thing. But if you can get in there like that in barbecues and where people are, like I think it's cool. Like, definitely. A VCR practitioner. I think this should be a course that's taught at the best MBA schools in the world. Absolutely. We need the reach. Yeah, that's right. We need the capability. They got the reach of all of these things. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's amazing. So what else should people be thinking about? Like in terms of what's the kind of your own business? Yeah. What do you have? I guess it starts doing an audit in your business. What do you know how to do? What do you know how to do? What is your opportunity? What's your unique ability that you have, and what's your asset that you have in capability? One of the great things that you can do when you're asking questions about these things, like in conversation, the VCR formula is a great collaborative conversation tool as well. When you start exploring capabilities that you have for together to see where there's an overlay of where there's a potential opportunity there. But you start, imagine if you're just asking somebody, or you're thinking this way, is what would you do if you had access to my capabilities? Right. Like you say to the thing, you go to any business and you say to, one says to somebody, what would they do if they had a full production studio at their beck and call, that they had as their capability? They had the capability to produce any audio, video content. What would they do? And often people limit their thinking because they don't think they have the capability to do it, right? That we're forcing people to, I always use the words that, they've got a fire hydrant of capability and ideas, vision, that they have to meter out through the garden hose of their affordability or their capabilities to do it, right? But if you had a big enough hose that you could hook up to the fire hydrant to get it all out, just thinking that way. And if you had this thing where, this is corollary to my idea of of receiving dock thinking as opposed to purchasing department.
Yeah.
So I think that where the challenge is, what most people are trying to do is they've got their capabilities and they're trying to go to other companies and get purchase orders to deliver their goods or services in the future. They're saying, hey, here's what we can do. Here's what it costs. Give us a purchase order and we'll deliver some goods
99% of the pitches that I get are exactly that.
Yeah.
You know, all the companies I've worked at, it's agencies telling us they can do this thing. They can do the result. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're all pitching to give me the money and then we'll deliver the results.
Yeah.
And I say, you're lined up with everybody. You're next in line at the purchasing department, trying to convince them and get the limited money that's already been allocated for it. But if you instead go around to the back and you approach a company from the receiving dock, you're met with open arms. Everybody on every level at the receiving dock is ready and fully authorized to bring money into the business. Right? So if you can think about a way to take your capabilities, which you have at cost, and apply them to someone else's opportunity, and together win in the big thing.
Okay, so let's take the studio, for example, right? There's excess capacity, right? Maybe say 20 or 30% of the day, right? Extra. How would you take that then and go and through the receiving dock of someone else in the 15-mile radius here?
All right.
What would be a high-value opportunity?
The one's perking up over here, listening to this really.
Let's go. Yeah.
But here's the thing. So in a lot of ways, we have and so I've been subtly laying the groundwork for these conversations here with Juan. He knows it's true, isn't it, Juan? Yes. Okay. So we've been talking about the capabilities that he has. You've heard me talk about the VCR formula. So right now he's got clients like me that I pay. He sends me purchase orders and I send them to Lillian and she writes the check or whatever, sends it over, and I pay to be here to create these things. Right. But there's some level of fiscal accountability that has to happen that I know that I'm able to turn that into a win. That's a good investment for us. But the real question would be, what would Juan asking me, what would I do if I had unlimited access to all of these capabilities, right? If I didn't have to write the purchase order first to do, what would I do? How could I turn these capabilities into money? How could I turn this into reach things? And so we've been talking about this idea of, I think, I've shared with you this idea of the 15-mile zone, the FMZ, I've been calling it, that really what local business, so much of every dollar that's spent in America is spent within 15 miles of where you live right now. Well, think about it. Like if you look at the average budget of everybody's annual budget or monthly budget, is almost half of it is to do with their house. That's true, meaning the house itself or the mortgage, the maintenance, insurance, all stuff, which is all consumed locally. All the, your mosquito treatments, your lawn treatment, your pool service, your furniture, all that stuff is all bought in the 15-mile bubble of where you are. Your transportation, your car, your insurance, your repairs, you get your gas at the local gas station. It's all local economy stuff. Food. All of your food is consumed in the 15-mile bubble, delivered by Uber Eats, or go to a restaurant, or you go to the grocery store locally. All the drugs, all the pharmaceuticals, everything that you're doing is all consumed locally. Your kids, your healthcare, all of it. It's probably only 10% or so of our discretionary budget is even available on these national brand things that everybody thinks about, right? So you start to think about how many businesses are there local that are serving people in the 15-mile zone. And if they just had the capability to reach these people, they could get more business, And it's almost like thinking like a venture capitalist versus thinking like a sales team, trying to.
So for the studio then, to tap into this kind of 15-mile radius, and they say they have 30% extra capacity, how would you go about thinking about that?
So I think you start to think, okay, so vision is what drives it all, right?
Yeah.
So what do I know how to do? If I we'll take this exact situation. So I know how to turn video and audio content into action, into getting new business for somebody, right? Which is going to drive up their things. So you look at any local business that needs,
like an insurance provider or real estate agent sort of thing. Yeah. We can imagine like doing an interview with a local real estate agent about and having the local podcasts on Winter Haven house prices.
Yeah.
And being the agent who comes in here every week and gives an update on everything that's kind of happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be, I think, an easy slot or an easy position for someone.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? I'm sure we know some real estate agents who
So you look at those and you start to think but it's a slower build. It's high ticket and high value, but it takes a little bit of time between doing it and doing it. So you think about your capabilities. You're going to take a factory model, or you're a capability factory, that you're a jobber and people are going to come and pay for the capacity or the capability that you have. And they're going to get, they pay the money at the front door, take the goods and services out the back door kind of thing. Or you can think like a capability farm, and you can start planting your capability seeds in something that you're going to reap with the harvest.
Yeah.
Right. That you're looking at investing in that time and money to turn into an asset that's going to be the harvest, and get a percentage of the harvest is going to be far better investment. Because you ultimately look at it that anytime somebody's giving you a purchase order for something, they're essentially saying, I've got more confidence in this than you do, is essentially it, right? I've got more confidence in my ability to turn this into more money than you do. So much so I'm going to give you the money up front, and then I'm going to get the whole reward at the end. At the end.
But imagine being so confident that you're able to give some of the result up front for free.
That's what
I think it actually limits you to not having to work with everybody. Say, this is who we're for, and this is who we can deliver that service really well. And it helps you kind of focus.
That's why I call that the clarifying question. Yeah. What would you do if you only got paid if your client gets the result?
Yeah.
So what result are you capable of producing?
Yes.
With your capabilities?
Yeah.
And that's where the whole, by the way, the company that does Kylie's stuff also has their own brand called ColourPop.
Yeah.
So while they're not making Kylie stuff, they're making ColourPop and getting all the money on that.
Yeah.
Right? They're getting a percentage of Kylie's.
Yeah, it's great.
But those kind of partnerships, I came up with the local, the things of, I've been calling it the attention squad.
Okay.
Of having a local, you imagine that you're a local business and you just need reach, you need attention.
Yeah.
So we send over the attention squad and they do the videos and do the stuff and get the reach, and out it comes, and everybody floods to your store.
Yeah.
And then when you count all the money, then you give us some of the money.
Yeah.
That's a really good thing. But all these businesses are going to these guys going, you should be doing video advertising, or you should be doing.
Yeah. It's one of the hardest things to do, I think, as an entrepreneur or even someone working in a corporate or a big brand, is to being able to ruthlessly focus on what you're uniquely qualified to do.
Yeah.
Right? That takes courage.
Yeah.
And I think that the problem is, I think when you become successful, you just want to naturally add more complexity to it, more moving parts. You want to have a bigger team, as opposed to going back to that Kylie Jenner example, is that she doesn't have a large team. Isn't it like $1 billion company with like 7 full-time employees?
She's got 7. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. It takes courage, I think.
For fun, the best thing you could do to illustrate that, if you watch there's on YouTube, you could do a ColourPop studio factory tour.
Yeah.
And then to contrast it, you could do the Kylie Jenner office tour.
Right.
And
it's completely different.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, her office is cavernous and empty.
Yeah.
And their office, 200,000 square feet of hundreds of people working in this building, making every component of those things under one roof.
I think that's what AI can't take away from you. It can't take away from your unique ability, right? Especially if it's something you've been honing for the past 10, 15, 20 years. It's just something that you do. But I think it takes courage to just focus on, okay, this is what I'm uniquely qualified to do, and I will do it. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think, there's so much there, but I would encourage people to, start thinking about your VCR assets as assets, really inventory them and start asking those questions. What would I do if I had access to your capabilities, or asking people the same question, what would you do if you had access to our capabilities?
Yeah.
And maybe providing ideas that if you said, hey, I think if you had access to our capabilities, or this is what I would do in your business with our capabilities. It's like, so it's almost like that whole, it's such a freeing thing when that's why, Dan Sullivan brilliantly has called this the free zone of the things when you're starting to look to collaborate together for an outcome in the future, something that neither of you has the capability on your own to reach.
Yeah.
That's a free zone, and there's no competition in that area. Nobody's thinking that.
That doesn't cost any money. It doesn't cost any money to go in the back of the building in the receiving dock and pop your head in and say, hey, you guys got a minute?
Yeah.
Let's have a chat about how we can work together.
Yeah. You got room to take on some new people?
Why not? Who's going to say no to that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
So fun.
And I think also, too, when you're able to collaborate like that, I think that's when the market maker opportunities come out. That's when you create something completely new that hasn't been done before. Yeah. That's quite cool. Yeah. I like it.
All right. So this is the end of April.
Yes.
In 2023. And we're, weeks, potentially months away from being able to talk about what you've been able to do. So I'm going to plant that seed. We're going to record right now a application that you've done of the VCR formula for release
when it's ready,
available, when it's able to be, when the story is able to be told. So you'll, stay tuned here.
Yeah.
Where you get all your podcast, all your more Dean information here, and we'll let you know when it's available. But
it works at all levels.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a great formula, and it's been a huge privilege, I think, to be able to take your insights of the past 25 years and implement them in the wild. So it's been good.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, stay tuned. More to come.